The alien princess threatened a human. But she didn't know he was legendary. The gun was already at his head when he sat down. Not a human gun. Not even a weapon that looked like it belonged in the same century as the metal folding chair beneath him. It was a Veth pulse emitter, a device the size of a human thumb that could liquefy bone from the inside out. The alien holding it had 3 fingers on each hand, skin the color of storm clouds, and the posture of someone who had never been told no. She was Princess Valith of the Keth Dominion, second heir to a 12-system empire. And she was pointing that weapon at a man who looked like he had stopped at a gas station on the way here. His name was Cole Ryder. He was 38 years old. He was wearing a gray t-shirt, boots with dried mud still on them, and an expression that could only be described as mildly inconvenienced. The diplomatic chamber on board the Keth command station was otherwise empty. That had been the agreement. 1 human, 1 Keth royal. A negotiation that both sides had agreed was, in the words of the Galactic Mediation Council, a last possible step before total war. No one had mentioned the gun. Violith leaned forward in her chair, which floated 3 inches off the ground, because Keth royalty did not sit on the same level as the floor. Her eyes were amber with vertical pupils, and they were locked on Cole with the kind of cold focus that comes from years of being trained to control everything in a room. "You will sign the concession documents," she said. Her universal translator turned her language into flat, precise English. "The outer 12 human colonies will be transferred to Keth administrative control. Your fleet will withdraw behind the Marin boundary, and your council will issue a formal acknowledgement of Keth sovereign primacy in this sector." She let the pulse emitter hover a little closer to his temple. "Or I will send your council a recording instead." Cole did not look at the gun. He looked at the table between them, which had a small bowl of blue water fruit in the center, apparently placed there by the Mediation Council staff before they cleared the room. He reached forward, picked one up, and ate it. Violeth's pupils narrowed. "Did you hear what I said?" "Yeah," Cole said. He chewed thoughtfully. "The fruit's good. What is this, Keth grown?" "You are being threatened." "I noticed." He looked at her now. Calm. Not the calm of someone who was hiding fear. The other kind. The kind that lives on the other side of something terrible, where fear has already been used up. "I'm just deciding how to respond." Violeth had negotiated with 17 species. She had watched ambassadors weep, beg, stall, collapse under the weight of her family's power. She had never negotiated with someone who ate fruit at her. "You have no leverage," she said. "Your fleet is positioned 4 light hours from this station. Your council voted to send 1 representative without military escort as a gesture of good faith. That gesture was a mistake." "Probably," Cole agreed. "So you understand your position." "I understand yours." He set the water fruit stem down on the table edge. "You think I'm a bureaucrat, someone your intelligence team flagged as a council liaison. Low rank, expendable enough to threaten, but senior enough that the recording would land with impact." Violeth said nothing. "The problem," Cole continued, "is that your intelligence team hasn't updated their files in about 11 years, which, in my experience, is exactly long enough to miss something important." The pulse emitter did not move. But something shifted in Valith's expression, a fraction of a thing. The way a door shifts when someone on the other side leans against it. 11 years ago, Cole said, "I was not a council liaison." He reached slowly into the breast pocket of his shirt. Violeth's free hand moved toward a secondary control panel, but he was already pulling out something small and flat. A metal card, matte black, with no markings on the front. He set it on the table and slid it toward her. She did not pick it up. "That's a decommission credential," he said. "Issued by the human military to personnel who are officially removed from active service and transition to civilian roles. It's standard. The relevant part is the serial prefix. Violet's eyes moved to the card without her wanting them to. The prefix was Delta 9 null. Her translator did not have a direct cultural equivalent for what that prefix meant to a human military officer. But she had done enough research on human forces to know that Delta 9 null was not a rank or division. It was a classification. It meant the individual's service record was sealed not for administrative reasons, but because the full content of that record was deemed too operationally sensitive to list in any accessible database. It meant the things this person had done could not be written down where anyone could read them. Violet's training had prepared her for weakness, for desperation, for the performance of strength from a position of none. It had not adequately prepared her for the specific quality of silence that now sat across the table from her, eating her station's complimentary fruit like a man waiting for a delayed train. "You have a Delta 9 null clearance," she said. The certainty had thinned in her voice, just slightly. "Had," he corrected. "I'm retired, genuinely." The council really did send a liaison. He leaned back in the chair. "They just didn't check what I did before I became one." Outside the viewport behind Violet, the stars were still. The human fleet was 4 light hours away. There were no ships charging toward this station, no rescue incoming, no pressure she could see or measure. That was, Cole knew, the problem with invisible things. You never saw them until they were already in the room. "So here's what I'd suggest," he said. "You put that down, we eat some more of this fruit, and you tell me what the Keth Dominion actually wants. Because it's not these 12 colonies. Those colonies produce agricultural exports and low-grade metals. They are not worth a war." He held her gaze. "So what is worth a war?" "That's the conversation I came here to have." The pulse emitter was still in her hand, but it had lowered 3 inches without her noticing. Violet of the Keth Dominion, second heir to a 12-system empire, looked at the man across the table. The man with mud on his boots and a sealed record and the patience of something that had survived things she did not have clearance to imagine. She looked at the bowl of blue fruit. She looked back at him. "You said the colonies produce low-grade metals," she said slowly. "Yes, but not what lies beneath those colonies." Cole was quiet for exactly 1 second. "No," he said, "not yet." The negotiation had just begun. And for the first time in 11 years, Cole Ryder felt the particular gravity of a situation that might actually require him to be more than a bureaucrat. He reached for another piece of fruit. He would need the energy. Violet did not put the weapon away. She set it on the table beside her, which was not the same thing, and both of them understood the difference. What she said next changed the shape of everything. "There is a mineral deposit beneath 3 of those 12 colonies," she said. "Our geological survey teams identified it 4 years ago. We have not disclosed this to the Galactic Mediation Council. We have not disclosed it to anyone." She paused. "It is called Vareth 7. Cole knew the name. The way you know the name of something you hoped you would never hear spoken out loud in a room you were sitting in. Vareth 7 was not a mineral in the conventional sense. It was a crystalline compound that formed only under specific gravitational and thermal conditions over millions of years. It had one known application in technology. One. And that application was the reason 3 separate galactic wars in recorded history had been fought before anyone had even understood what they were fighting over. Vareth 7 was the only naturally occurring material capable of stabilizing a fold space drive at the mass required to move a fleet. Not a ship, a fleet. Hundreds of vessels through folded space simultaneously. No staging, no light-hour delays, no warning. Whoever held a large enough deposit of Vareth 7 could, in theory, put a war fleet anywhere in the known galaxy inside of 4 minutes. Your geological survey found how much? Cole asked. His voice had not changed. This was either impressive or terrifying, depending on your perspective. Enough, Velith said. One word. It landed like a dropped anchor. And the Keth Dominion wants to control it, Cole said. The Keth Dominion wants to ensure that no single power controls it, Velith said, including the Keth Dominion. Cole looked at her. She met his look with the amber stillness of someone saying something they had rehearsed and then decided was actually true. I don't believe you, he said, but I'm listening. Violeth folded her 3-fingered hands on the table. There are factions within my family's court that do not share my position. My elder brother controls the military survey division. He found the deposit first. He came to me with a proposal to keep it from my father and extract it quietly, using the colonial transfer as administrative cover. The colonies transfer to Keth control. The humans assume it is about territory. By the time anyone understands what was beneath the ground, the extraction is complete, and you're telling me this because I do not want a war built on something that will cause 3 more wars after it. She looked at the pulse emitter on the table. I brought that weapon today because if you had been who your file said you were, I needed leverage to make you sign. A transaction, clean. She paused. You are not who your file said you were. So instead of threatening a bureaucrat into signing, Cole said, you're now asking someone with a sealed record to help you stop your brother from starting a galactic arms crisis using human colonial soil. Yes, without telling the Galactic Mediation Council. If the Council knows about the Varath 7 deposit, 16 factions will move on those colonies within 72 hours. There will be no negotiation. There will be an auction conducted in warships. Cole was quiet, the kind of quiet that does actual work. He had been in rooms like this before. Not this room, not this species, but this particular weight. The weight of a decision that had no clean edge, no option that didn't cost something. He knew that weight the way you know the smell of your own house. Who else in the Keth court knows your brother's plan? He asked. 3 of his advisors, and now you. Your father. My father is ill. The succession debate is already beginning. My brother has been positioning for 2 years. This move with the colonies, it is not just about the mineral. It is about arriving at the succession with an empire that is larger, with a resource no one else has and a military already in position. She looked down at her hands. He would be unstoppable. And you'd be dead, Cole said. Not cruelly. A fact. Violeth did not flinch. My brother is not sentimental. Cole stood up. Not because he had decided anything yet, because he needed to think standing, and sitting still for too long in crisis rooms had always made him feel like furniture. He walked to the viewport. Stars. The vast, uninvested dark of deep space. Somewhere, 4 light hours away, his fleet was sitting on scheduled patrol rotation, completely unaware that the ground under 12 human colonies was made of the most dangerous material in the known galaxy. He had retired for a reason. He had spent 11 years building a life that consisted of mediation tables and water fruit, and the deliberate, chosen smallness of a civilian role. He had done enough. The Delta 9 null file existed because he had done enough for 3 lifetimes, and the things in that file were not things he was proud of. They were things he had survived. That was different. He turned back to Velith. If I help you neutralize your brother's operation, he said, what does the Keth Dominion offer the human colonies in return? Full autonomous status. Permanent. No administrative transfer. And a joint custodial agreement on the Varath 7 deposit, overseen by a body that includes neither Keth nor human unilateral control. And your brother? Violeth was quiet for a moment. My brother will be handled within the court, she said. That is a Keth matter. No, Cole said. That's a liability. If he's alive and out of power, he spends the next decade looking for another angle. I've seen that story. It ends in fire. Violeth looked at him with something that was not quite respect and not quite fear. Something in between. Something new. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that your brother needs to be publicly and formally disgraced. With evidence. In front of your father, while your father is still conscious enough to act on it. Cole crossed his arms. Which means we need the survey records, the extraction plan documentation, and the communication between him and his advisors. All of it. In our hands before he knows this conversation happened. Those documents are on a secured Keth military archive server, Valeth said. Embedded behind 6 authentication layers and a live monitoring system. Cole looked at her with an expression that was almost amused. Give me 40 minutes, he said. Violeth stared at him. You cannot access a Keth military server from inside this station. You would need... I know what I'd need, he said. I brought it anyway. Old habit. He sat back down, reached under the table, and pulled up a flat case he had apparently attached to the underside of the chair before she arrived. Inside, nestled in gray foam, was a piece of equipment she did not recognize, which was notable given that she had clearance to recognize most things. She looked at it, then at him. You came to a diplomatic negotiation, she said carefully, with a military intrusion kit. I came to a diplomatic negotiation, he said, expecting to be threatened by a Keth royal with something to hide and a reason to want a fast signature. He shrugged. Like I said, old habit. He powered the device on. The room hummed. 40 minutes, he had said. Violeth folded her hands, looked at the stars outside, and thought about all the ways her brother had underestimated her, about the quiet war she had been running inside the court walls for 2 years, planting pieces on a board no one else could see. She had come here to threaten a human into signing a document. She was beginning to understand that she had come here for something else entirely. The Keth military archive server had 6 authentication layers. Cole worked through the first 3 in 11 minutes, which would have been impressive to anyone watching. The 4th layer took 19 minutes because it required generating a ghost credential that mirrored the access signature of an authorized Keth user, and the device he was using was calibrated for human military systems, not Keth architecture. He had to rebuild parts of the approach on the fly, adjusting variables with the focused quiet of someone doing something he had done a version of too many times to count. Violeth watched. She did not speak. She understood enough about focus to leave it alone. The 5th layer was a live monitor. He had to time his access to pass between the system's scan intervals, which cycled every 90 seconds. He waited, counted, moved in the gap, pulled the thread. The 6th layer was biometric, linked to the original user who had uploaded the files. Cole paused there. Your brother, he said. What's his name? Drevath. He uploaded these files himself, not through an aide. Drevath trusts no one with anything important. He has a particular arrogance about personal security. Cole nodded. That's good. Arrogant people use the same biometric seed phrase across systems. It's a known vulnerability. He typed a short string. What is your brother's rank title? Full formal version. Violeth gave it to him. It was 6 words in Keth, which the translator rendered as roughly sovereign military architect of the advancing dominion. Cole used it. The biometric layer cracked. The files opened. They were more complete than either of them had expected. Drevath had been meticulous. Geological surveys with coordinates, extraction timelines, financial projections, communication logs between him and his 3 advisors, 2 of whom were also on the military council. There were also, buried in a secondary folder, communication records with a 3rd party. Not Keth, not human. a species called the HFY Collective. Cole opened those files. Violet leaned forward for the first time, and the hovering chair dipped slightly with the shift in her weight. The Vorathi had been providing Drivath with fold space transit technology in exchange for a 10% stake in the Vareth 7 deposit once extraction was complete. They had been doing this for 14 months. They had also, according to one communication thread, provided him with the intelligence package he had used to build the fake diplomatic file. The one that described Cole as a low-level council liaison. The fake file had come from the Vorathi, which meant the Vorathi had known about the deposit longer than Drivath had been working with them, which meant someone had told them. Cole downloaded everything. Twice, to 2 separate drives. He closed the connection, cleared the ghost credential, and powered down the device. The room was quiet. "Your brother didn't find the deposit," Cole said. Violet's pupils were very narrow. "No. The Vorathi found it and brought it to him. They needed a Keth royal with military access and ambition and a willingness to operate outside the law. Drivath was a candidate they selected. He would not have accepted that framing," Valeth said. "But there was something hollow in it." "Of course not. Nobody does. You think you found a resource. You think you're the driver. And then 3 years later, you turn around and realize you're the car." Cole pocketed one drive and held the other out toward her. "This changes the scope." Violet took the drive slowly. The Vorathi have been running this operation from behind your brother for over a year. When Drivath falls, and he will fall, because this evidence will end him, the Vorathi will not disappear. They will find another angle. They are a minor collective, 2 systems, limited military capacity. They were a minor collective, Cole said, before they started building fold space transit technology. "Do you want to guess where they got the materials to develop that?" Violet was quiet. "There's a 3rd deposit," Cole said. "At least one. They found one before yours. Smaller, maybe not enough to matter on its own, but enough to prototype the technology. And now they're positioning to access yours through your brother." He looked at her. "This is not a court intrigue. This is a Vorathi expansion play that's been running for at minimum 3 years, using Keth and human pieces on the same board without either side knowing. The viewport showed the same stars it had shown an hour ago. The same empty dark. But the room felt like a different room now. "You need to go home," Cole said. "Tonight, with those files. You need to be in front of your father before Drivath realizes this conversation happened. And you? I need to make a call." He stood. "The kind of call you make when you remember why you kept certain phone numbers after you retired." Valeth stood as well. The floating chair rose behind her automatically. She picked up the pulse emitter from the table, and then, with a precision that looked deliberate, placed it back down. She left it there. Cole looked at it, looked at her. "Thank you for the fruit," he said. "It was the station's fruit," she said. Still. She moved toward the chamber door, then stopped, turned. There was something in her expression that the translator could not carry. A weight she was choosing to hand across the table, carefully, with both hands. "The file they built on you," she said. "The fake one. It described you as mid-level, forgettable. Someone we could pressure into a signature and discard." "Yeah. I read it 3 times preparing for today." She paused. "I noticed something the second time. Whoever built that file, they worked very hard to make you seem like no one. Most forgery involves adding things, making credentials bigger than they are." She looked at him. This file removed things, subtracted, very carefully. She paused again. "I have been lied to many times. I have never been lied to by a file that was trying to make someone smaller than they were. Cole said nothing. What did you do? She asked. Not with menace, with something closer to genuine human curiosity, which was unusual coming from a Keth Royal. In the sealed record. What is in it? He picked up the last piece of water fruit. Things that needed doing, he said, at the time. He walked out. The fruit was good. It occurred to him that in 11 years of retired civilian life, he had never eaten anything quite like it, and he would not remember where it came from. And that was fine. Most good things were like that. You had them once in a strange room under strange circumstances, and you moved on, carrying just the fact of them, not the details. His earpiece was already warming up. The number he was about to call had not been dialed in 4 years. It picked up on the second ring. I know, the voice on the other end said, before Cole could speak. We've been watching the station. Then you know about the Vorathi. We know about the Vorathi. A pause. We've been waiting to see who'd pull the thread first. How long have you been watching? 11 months. Cole exhaled, long and slow. And you didn't call me? You retired, the voice said. We were respecting that. Right. He looked back at the closed chamber door. I need a team. Quiet. No flags. And I need someone who speaks Vorathi first dialect. Not the trade pigeon, the actual language. We have someone. I figured you did. Cole walked down the corridor toward the docking bay. His ship was small. Deliberately small. The kind of vessel that did not appear on threat assessments. Tell them to be ready. We're going to have to move before Drivath figures out his archive was accessed. How long do we have? Long enough, Cole said. Maybe. The corridor lights hummed overhead, pale and institutional. Somewhere behind him, in a diplomatic chamber that smelled faintly of blue fruit, a Keth princess was holding a drive full of evidence and walking toward a docking bay of her own. They had not exchanged contact information. They did not need to. Some things, once in motion, find their own shape. Cole reached his ship, punched in the departure code, and sat down in the pilot's seat. He pulled up the star map, found the Vorathi Collective's nearest inhabited system, 3 light days out. He had 48 hours before the Keth succession crisis reached a point of no return. He set the course. He was not retired anymore. He was not sure he minded. The Vorathi Collective's nearest station was called Anchor Point Gray in the Galactic Common Tongue, which was a translation so inaccurate that the original Vorathi name, which meant roughly the place where debts are remembered, had been essentially erased. This was, Cole thought, either coincidence or very deliberate branding. He was leaning toward the latter. He docked under a freight registry, one of 7 false identities he had quietly maintained after leaving service. The ship read as a small-haul cargo runner out of a human agricultural colony, carrying processed grain supplements to a distribution hub. Boring in every measurable way. Exactly right. His contact was already there. Her name was Nina Cole. No relation. She was 29, had grown up speaking Vorathi first dialect because her mother had been a xenolinguist stationed at an early contact mission, and she had joined the intelligence network at 22 with the specific skill set of someone who could walk through a Vorathi market and be taken for a long-term resident. She had dark hair cut short on one side and longer on the other, and she was reading something on a small screen when Cole sat down across from her in the docking bay's only food stall. She did not look up. You look exactly like someone who just came from a high-pressure diplomatic situation, she said. I look like I always look. That's what I said. She put the screen down. I've read the Vorathi files you pulled. The ones your contact on the station, I'm assuming the princess, sent ahead to our relay. She sent them already? 20 minutes after you left the chamber. She's efficient. Nina pushed a small cup of something across the table. The Varathi individual running this operation is named Tessevar, not a collective official, technically a private citizen. But he has a history of running long-position resource operations that benefit the collective while maintaining personal deniability. Classic cutout structure. The very classic. The collective can disavow him the second things go wrong. He takes the fall. They keep the technology contracts he arranged. She looked at Cole. He is currently on this station. Cole picked up the cup, did not drink from it. Today, I docked 6 hours ago. We think he received an automated alert from Dravath's archive when the access was made. He doesn't know who made the intrusion, but he knows the files were touched. So he's here to do damage control, or to disappear before it becomes his problem. Cole set the cup down. Which bay is his ship in? 17. But going to his ship is not the move. Nina folded her hands in a very deliberate way. Tessevar does not travel without his records. And Tessevar, unlike Dravath, is not arrogant about personal security. His records are with him, physically, on a storage unit he carries. How do you know that? Because 18 months ago, before any of this started, one of our people made contact with Tessevar under a trade cover, built a 3-month relationship. Never got close enough to the storage unit, but got close enough to confirm it existed and that he did not let it leave his person. She paused. That person was me. Cole looked at her. Tessevar knows me as a grain logistics coordinator named Petra, she said, who he found charming in a professional context and has not seen since that contract ended. She tilted her head. He would not be suspicious of a coincidental meeting. A coincidental meeting on a station he came to specifically because his hidden operation was compromised. He doesn't know that yet. He knows his archive was accessed. He doesn't know by whom. He doesn't know that the files have already been copied and sent to a Keth court and a human intelligence relay. She met Cole's eyes. As of this moment, Tessevar thinks he has a leak to find, not a net closing around him. How long before he figures out the difference? Nina checked her screen. Valith is meeting with her father in... She calculated approximately 6 hours, given transit time. Once Dravath is formally accused in front of the Keth sovereign, Tessevar's communication channels with the court will go dark. At that point, he will know. 6 hours, Cole said. 5.5, realistically. Cole exhaled. What do you need from me? I need you to sit in this food stall, she said, and watch the door of Bay 17 while I go have a coincidental reunion with an old professional acquaintance. She stood. And I need you to not do anything dramatic. I'm retired, Cole said. You keep saying that. She picked up her screen. I'll be 30 minutes. If I'm not back in 30 minutes... I'll come in, he said, quiet. She nodded, walked out. Cole sat with his untouched cup and watched the corridor that led to Bay 17. 22 minutes later, Nina walked back through the far end of the food stall and sat down across from him. She placed a storage unit on the table between them. It was small, matte gray. No external markings. He is currently having a drink in the station lounge, she said, and is unaware that he has lost something. Cole looked at the storage unit. You pulled it off him? Petra, the grain logistics coordinator, accidentally walked into him in the corridor, got briefly tangled in an apologetic interaction, and they went their separate ways. She picked up his untouched cup and drank from it. I've been doing this for 7 years. Tessevar is going to notice. Tessevar is going to notice in about 3 minutes, she agreed, which is why we are now leaving. They left, on the ship, at transit speed toward the nearest secure relay. Cole opened the storage unit. The files inside were better than the ones from Dravath's archive. They were the original files. The blueprint from Tessevar's perspective. 14 months of planning, false flagged through Keth channels, with the full Vorathi collective knowledge trail embedded in the metadata. This was not just Tessevar. The collective had authorized this operation. At the highest level, Cole forwarded the files to the relay. Then he sat back and looked at the stars through the forward viewport. Beside him, Nina was already writing her report. "You know what this means," he said. "The Galactic Mediation Council is going to have a very difficult month," she said. "And the Vorathi Collective is going to have a very difficult year." Nina kept writing. "Is Velith going to be all right? At court?" Cole thought about a princess who had come to a negotiation with a weapon she did not end up using, and a drive she had sent before he could even ask, and a door she had walked out of, leaving the weapon behind. "Yeah," he said, "I think she'll be fine." Cole sent his full report to the Galactic Mediation Council 11 hours after leaving the diplomatic station. He did not attach his name to it. The Delta 9 null credential was listed as the originating authority, and anyone with the clearance to know what that meant would understand why no name was attached. The Galactic Mediation Council convened an emergency closed session within 6 hours of receiving the report. The Vorathi Collective's representation was suspended pending investigation. Tessevar was detained by station security at Anchor Point Gray approximately 4 hours after Cole and Nina left, on the basis of a formal evidence request transmitted from 3 different bodies simultaneously. He denied everything for 19 minutes. Then his legal representation, which arrived via the collective, failed to appear. The collective had already begun its official disavowal. Tessevar signed a full cooperation agreement before the first day of the session was over. In the Keth Dominion, Drivath's disgrace was complete by the end of the second day. The sovereign review was swift and absolute, in the way that only a dying emperor with something to prove can be. Drivath was stripped of his military title and placed under court supervision. 2 of his 3 advisors resigned immediately. The 3rd stayed and provided supplemental testimony. Violeth was formally named acting heir within 72 hours. Cole found out from a brief notification message that arrived on his ship's relay board. It read, in flat Universal Translator English, "The matter is resolved. The fruit was from the Peleth system. They are available commercially. V." He looked at the message for a moment. Nina leaned over from the co-pilot seat. Read it. "You made friends with an alien princess. I ate her fruit and didn't sign her forms," Cole said. "Romantic." "It's not. She's an alien." "I know. I'm making fun of you." Nina sat back. "So what now? You going back to the council liaison office?" Cole looked at the star map. At the position of the 12 colonies, sitting above the largest Varath 7 deposit ever identified. At the joint custodial framework documents that the Mediation Council had already begun drafting, naming both human and Keth co-signatories. With a neutral oversight board that included, at Velith's specific suggestion, a seat for a human representative with operational experience in sensitive resource contexts. The recommendation for who should fill that seat had also arrived in his relay board. It had no formal title. It just had his name, not the Delta 9 null credential, his actual name, Cole Ryder. He closed the star map, then opened it again. "I need to make one more call," he said. "To who?" "The person who kept my number active for 11 years while I was eating water fruit and pretending to be a bureaucrat." He found the contact, paused. "They deserve to know I'm coming back voluntarily this time." Nina smiled. "Do you even own anything that isn't a gray t-shirt?" "I have 2 gray t-shirts," Cole said. "They're different shades." He made the call. On the other end, the same voice as before picked up on the first ring this time. "We know," the voice said. "You always know," Cole said. "That's the job." A pause. "Welcome back." He ended the call. The ship moved through deep space on a heading back toward human territory. Outside the viewport, the stars held their distances from each other, stable and uncaring and impossibly vast, the way the universe always was before and after the small, enormous moments humans made inside it. Cole Ryder was 48 hours out of retirement. No one had threatened him. No one had ordered him. He had simply eaten some fruit, listened to someone with a real problem, and followed the thread to its end, because that was, in the most fundamental way, what he did, what he had always done. The file called Delta 9 Null sat in a sealed server somewhere, full of things that had needed doing. They had been done. They had cost what they cost. And now there was a new thing to do. Not with weapons and sealed records, but with a seat at a table where the right kind of knowledge, used with the right kind of patience, might keep a mineral deposit from becoming the engine of 3 future wars. He was not a hero. Heroes were people who had no other options. Cole had always had other options. He had chosen this one. Out of the 12 colonies, across light years of political architecture and alien succession crises, and one remarkably capable young princess who had left a weapon on a table as a statement of something she hadn't needed to say out loud. Out of all of that, a thread had been followed to somewhere better than where it started. That was enough. That was, in the end, the whole job. He reached forward and set the autopilot. Then he leaned back, closed his eyes, and for the first time in 48 hours, slept.